All right, I think everything is finally set up. Oh, let's get situated here. Damn, that took longer than I thought. So I've had this program for a while. It's called Virtual Desktop. And pretty much what it allows you to do is it allows you to play video games in certain virtual reality settings. There's quite a few cool ones, and there's some that are really trippy. But here I've got the Purple Nebula. And let me stand up real quick. I mean, do a full 360. And you see that there's space everywhere. No matter where you look. It's pretty badass. Let me find my chair here. Yeah, and there's tons of different ones you could check out. Like here, Milk Drop. Holy shit, I am out of here. Wow. Throw somebody into a seizure. Ugh. Fuck that one. Well, this one's not too bad. But I'm not overly crazy about the space settings. Let's come down here. I downloaded this one for anyone who plays Overwatch. You'll recognize this place. This one, when you're in the game, it really doesn't look as impressive as it does on the video. And I'm really hoping that one day they could animate all these backgrounds. Sort of like the one that'll throw you into a seizure that we just looked at. What else do we have here? For any of you WoW players out there, this is the newest expansion. Well, the latest expansion. This is the first raid area. It's called the Emerald Dream. It was a really fun raid to do. I enjoyed it very much. I didn't like the Twin Dragon fight, though. That was really fucking annoying. Let's see. I also got the Karabor Coliseum from World of Warcraft. I hope that stutter that I'm seeing is not in the videos. It's kind of cool. And then, oh, this one's one of my personal favorites. I am the War Chief, sitting in Thrall's spot. It says Grommash Hold, but Grommash Hellscream was a bitch. Thrall will forever be the War Chief. Not Grom, not Sylvanas, Thrall. All arguments are invalid. But this is what I would play it on, but I think these pillars right there, and the dogs, the direwolves down there, they do cover up some of the screens. I'll adjust my screen and everything once I'm done. And so this is one of my personal favorites. I've got Mystery Science Theater. This one is another one of my favorites, the Home Theater. It's really nice, very cool, and it makes the screen huge. I'm not using my motion controllers for this. There's really no need to, but if I did, I'm sure a couple of hands would pop up in front of me. This is another one of my personal favorites, the Home Cinema. Looks just like a home cinema. I actually watched The Nightmare Before Christmas on Halloween in this setting. It was fantastic. The sub in the back. I love it. I love it. I used to sell a lot of this type of equipment at Best Buy for quite some time. What else do we have? What else did I download? The 8,000-inch theater. I'm not a big fan of this one, but damn is it huge. And you see the door off in the distance out there. I'm on some elevated platform, my own little throne. I'm not crazy about the monitor here, but I didn't make it, so. A large theater screen, which is really cool. I like this one. I like this one a lot. What else do we have? Sunrise. It's nice. Peaceful. But not exactly where I'd want to play a game. Oh, no. Settings. Photo studio. Huh. Too bright. All right, let's... I really want to do this one, but I don't think people would really like all that shit in the way. Hang on. This one or this one? No, not this one. Home theater. You know what? I'm just going to do the home theater. Play a game on it. I'll do a quick run. All right. Let me get situated. Now, if anyone has actually watched any of my videos, you'll notice that this is the game that I've got some, I think, like 8 or 9 videos of this game. It's called The Realm Online. And this guy, or this game, came out in 1995, maybe late 94, but it was still in its beta phase. And it was officially released, I believe, in 1996. It is the very first MMORPG that ever existed. Give me 1 second. I need to adjust something, because I know that camera is going to be pretty shaky because it's on my head, so I need to try to lock my head into place here, so I'm not shaking all over. It's not that big a deal when I'm up and moving around and playing a virtual reality game, but yeah, hopefully this helps. But anyway, this is the very first MMORPG that ever existed. And the term MMORPG wasn't even a term back then. A lot of people that I knew back when the game was in its prime, a lot of people referred to it as a graphical mud. I'm like, shut your mouth. It's its own thing. It's its own genre. But this game really was the Wild West of MMOs. And when I say that, I'm talking, this is where they were trying a bunch of shit out. The game was originally made by Sierra Online. And there were quite a few things. That sounded good on paper, but just were not good in practice. I have no idea what this Duox Iron Key is for. They had things like jail was one of them. And if you pickpocketed someone and got caught, let's see, what else? If you killed someone in PvP, like jumped them and killed them, it counted as a murder. And sorry, hang on. You'll find throughout this video, this is one of the first time. Son of a. You gonna crash me again, dickhead? Alright, good. God, that's so fucking frustrating. I totally lost my train of thought here. Let's see, garbage. Both of those are most likely garbage. That amulet might be something, though. Let's find out. But anyway, the things like jail, getting a murder status or whatever, all of those things you would accumulate jail time. And if one of the guardians caught you, they would catch you, kill you, and throw you in jail. And you would have to actually sit in real time. Oh, that's all garbage. You would have to actually sit in real time in a jail cell. And, you know, I mean, that seems pretty legit, you know? What in the fuck are you doing? Sorry, it's not perfect, especially with this game. The game's so old, the resolutions, colors, all that stuff is not really what you would expect from a game today. But anyway, let's go do a dungeon. But yeah, so with things like jail, it became, for people who, what we today call trolls, it became a reward as opposed to a punishment. So people would rack up huge amounts of jail time, and they'd go around harassing people. It promoted trolling. You know, other things that unfortunately were never taken out of the game that don't work, but I get where they were going with it, because the game was extremely detailed for its time. So in this game, you have to eat and you have to drink. Otherwise, you'll die if you don't. Just like in real life. Sounds, you know, on paper, especially if you're going to make the very first MMORPG ever. You know, I can't think of any games off the top of my head back then that you had to do that. Aside from maybe Dungeons and Dragons, where you can... I don't know if the earlier versions of D&D had it. But it could affect your stats and whatnot if you don't eat, nourish yourself. But it's nothing more than a hindrance. You don't get a buff from the food or any of the drinks. You just... Speaking of, I'll have to take it inside. You don't get a buff or anything from it. You just have to do it. It's really frustrating. And another thing that's not in this game that has never been implemented. Really, you put a trap on that? Fuck you. But another thing that's never been implemented was the safe trade. You know, in games today, that's just like, yeah, no shit, you gotta have safe trade. Well, this game didn't have that. You had to either hand first, or the person you were buying something from had to hand it to you first, or use a middleman. And there were people who, they kind of made their name as a middleman, and usually the middleman would get a cut of whatever the deal was, for being honest. But that's still pretty flawed, because there were some people who, they did tons and tons of honest deals and became well known for being honest, until that real big, real sweet deal came along, and then they just ran off with everything. So, but even, you know, even though this game has tons of flaws, you know, like I said, it was the Wild West of MMOs, and it not too many people knew about it, unfortunately. But it still really did kind of set the pace, you know, being the first one. And it even though it's got a lot of flaws, it's still my all-time favorite multiplayer video game ever. It's a lot of fun. You can see it's turn-based, and man, do I have tons of stories from this game. Tons of stories. My highlight of the Realm Online was, I think, back either late 1996 or early 1997. And I think that's when a company called the Codemasters had a hold of the game. And they decided that they were going to have a PvP tournament. And PvP was my thing. I loved PvP. And when I heard they were doing a tournament, I was like, oh, hell yes. And they were doing it in this place, in this section of the game called Tourney Grove. Now, Tourney Grove, it was an area where if you died, you did not lose experience and you did not drop any of your items or anything like that. And the only rules to this tournament, hang on real quick, what I do here when I come and have to fight these dark fairies, I'll kill one and I'll just sit here waiting for this one to berserk me. And after it berserks me, I quickly run over to the Troll Kings and get a free round of attacks on them. Makes my life a little bit easier while I'm a low level. You'll see what I mean. But anyway, so they held this PvP tournament, and the only rule... There we go. The only rules to the PvP tournament was you couldn't fear anybody, and you couldn't rust. Rust would destroy items. But I quickly realized that there was absolutely no way, once I looked at how the PvP tournament was set up, they had to do everything in brackets. And I quickly realized that my character, who was level 1000, was not going to win in the one-on-one tournament. There was just no way he was going to win. Oh, what? It wore off? Go fuck yourself. Anyway, so I had a level 500 character, and I ended up winning the level 500 to 600 bracket with him. Because this game, there's a severe lack of balance, and just like my character here, he's an exact copy of what my character was, or what my original character was. He's a human adventurer, 14, 12, 10, 12. 14 strength, 12 dexterity, 10 intelligence, and 12 endurance. Which is not great. Humans were sort of the middle of the road. They didn't really excel in anything, but they didn't severely lack in anything either. So, because originally, you had giants, elves, and humans. Giants were about strength and endurance. Elves were about speed and intelligence, and humans were, like I said, middle of the road, basically. I played this game back in version 2.0, but it was on my buddy's account on his computer at his house, because I didn't have a computer back in 1995. And I definitely didn't have the internet, and all internet was dial-up back then. So I would go over to his house. I would go over to his house, and he would hook up his computer to his big screen TV, which was so amazing. You got to understand, all this stuff that back in the 90s, before people even really had computers in their homes, it was about the early to mid 90s is when people started to really get into computers and get into the internet. So, excuse me. So I'd go over to my buddy Dave's house and I'd watch him play. And what's funny is one of the guys who is the implementers on this private server, I met him, sort of met him. I met him through my buddy back in 2.0. His name was Raptor. And Raptor got into a big fight, a big PvP fight with my buddy Dave. And Raptor was a lower level than my friend Dave. So anyway, he ended up losing. And of course, when you have someone watching you, it's kind of easy to get wrapped up in the moment. And oh, you little bastard. It's kind of easy to get wrapped up in the moment. So my buddy Dave started really talking a lot of shit. And then Sir Raptor came back, started talking a lot of shit. And they got into... okay. they got into this big argument, and it ended up turning into this huge scrap because Dave kept jumping Sir Raptor, and Sir Raptor kept fleeing because he just, like I say, he was a lower level. So he calls his buddy Presto out, who was max level, and Presto jumped and killed my buddy Dave. So then my buddy Dave calls his buddy Dark Oath out, who's max level, and this big, just massive shitstorm of trash talking and PvP happened. And I'm watching it all go down on a big screen TV and enjoying the living shit out of it. And turns out, I mean, fast forward a few years, I came across the Raptor in the Realm 3.0, and we just got to BSing and whatnot. And it was cool to kind of catch up a little bit, and we became friends. Well, I guess we're not really friends. We're more friendly acquaintances. We don't hang out or really talk much, but he's one of the guys who set up this server, which was really awesome. But anyway, back to my PvP story. I knew that I wasn't going to win the level 1000 bracket, just seeing who was in it and the type of characters that they have, because like I was saying earlier, there's no real balance. You can't respec or anything like that. So, and I knew a 14-12, 10-12 wasn't going to last long against a 20-20 speed wizard or an elf hitter. So I was like, well, fuck. What do I do? I really want to do it, and all the people that I would want to group with are already grouped with someone else, so I can't do the group PvP. I'm stuck with one-on-one. And I was like, well, I'll just use my character Access Denied, who was an all-endurance human warrior. He was level, I think, like 525 or something like that. So I signed up, and then I looked at the people who were going to compete. I did not recognize any of the names. It's one of the few times in my quote-unquote video game career where I got cocky. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to stomp these people. I have no idea who they are. Because I PvP'd so much, I pretty much knew all the big PvPers and PvP'd with and against them. People like Risks, Storm, Murder, Demoof. Demoof was one of my best friends in the realm. Great guy. Chong 4, I PvP'd with him a lot. Mizarok. Anyway, I can just name names all day long. But I didn't recognize any of the people who were in. She was trying to flee. That's why she wasn't moving. I didn't recognize any people in the bracket, so I got pretty cocky. I was like, oh, I'm gonna smash these people. I ended up doing like 8 fights. I won every single one of them, and most of them they couldn't break my regen because he would regen anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 hit points per round. And as long as I cured my poison, I really didn't have to use any potions of regeneration. I really didn't have to heal. It was great. So I ended up killing. I beat the last person in the semifinals. I beat the person in the semifinals, and the chick I was supposed to fight in the finals, she ended up making it to the finals because she got the guy she was supposed to fight didn't show up. He couldn't make it. So she basically got a free win to the finals. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? That's kind of shitty. But it is what it is, you know? So we ended up going at it, and she was better than I thought, but she still wasn't very good. You know, I'm not trying to sound cocky, it's just the truth. And going here. So anyway, I beat her, and I didn't understand back then what role playing was. And so she started talking really funny, And I was like, I started laughing because I thought she was just kind of joking around. And I can't pronounce it. It was really medieval themed type of vernacular, like thou and saith, and just whatever. So I was like, all right. And she wanted to go buy me a drink. I'm like, buy me a drink. I'm like, I'm 16. And I was like, I can't go drink. And then that apparently made her break character, which is, I don't know, maybe I'm an asshole for making her do that. But you can tell she was a little agitated by it. But she was still really friendly, but just... Anyway. She's like, no, she was talking about in-game. I'm like, you want me to go... You want to go buy a drink in-game? Like, why? I mean, I could be PvPing right now. What? And I didn't get role-playing. I just did not get it. So... I end up winning the tournament. It was super cool. They announced my name over globally, and I my whole chat just scrolled down what seemed for like minutes at a time, and people were like, "Oh, congratulations! Yeah, good job!" Blah blah blah. It was a really it was a nerdgasm for sure, and. When it came time to give me my prize, I don't know, I kind of turned into a little baby about it, because what I really wanted was a spellbook of Enid's Blessing. It is one of the best, if not... No, honestly, I do think it is the best skill or spellbook in the game. It heals you to full and cures your poison. It's expensive as hell, but is definitely the best spell in the game. Arguably. And I was really hoping that was going to be my prize, because I know that was the prize for the level 1000, and I think maybe like the 700 to 800 bracket, or whatever the other brackets were. And nope, wasn't Eden's Blessing. I was kind of shitty about that. I got a stupid Executioner's Axe, which was a good axe, don't get me wrong, and it was an axe that was made for giants so they could, you know, participate in PvP and become somewhat viable by themselves. And I mean, it sold for a decent amount, but I couldn't use it. I didn't want it. I had no interest in it, and I didn't get what I wanted, so I kind of pouted about that. But you know, can't always get what you want. But it was cool. It was still my favorite moment in the realm, was winning that PvP tournament. Even though I kind of had to go down a few brackets in order to be able to win. Not because it was lack of skill, just my character. There was just no way my character could win 1v1. But I mean, I've got a ton of other stories about this game too, and I could talk for hours. But I got to be careful who I talk to for hours about this kind of shit, because if I were to talk here in general chat, I don't think these people on this server like it. But if I were to do it on the original server, holy shit, I would get attacked, because the game's got such a cult following of extremely loyal players. You got to be really loyal, because this game is, like I said, it's been out since 1995, possibly even 1994 when it was in its alpha version. But don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up. But basically, the game has been out for over 20 years, I believe, right? Something like that. And, oh, don't kill it. But a lot of people in the other servers, they don't really like you talking too much about nostalgia. They damn sure don't like you talking about making changes or what you'd like to see in the game or anything like that, because they will attack you. Now, so far, I haven't seen anything like that on this server, which is really good, because, you know, everyone you see here, and a lot of other people too, they don't seem to have a stick up their ass, because the reason the server exists is the original implementer of the game. His name was Steven. He tried to get a hold of the people who do own the rights to the game, so he could attempt to buy it from them and save the game, because he wanted to make a updated version of this game. Because I mean, I know this sounds really weird, but people who are really into video games that they loved as a kid can understand this. Like, there is a legendary spot in my heart for the Realm Online, and Steven understands that. I guarantee you everyone here and everyone who plays, who still plays the game to this day, can understand that. So he was going to pretty much make a new game called The Realm Reawakened. He started up this website, started up a Kickstarter, and was working on it. And that was about 2 years ago, I think, or close to it. And he only raised, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of like $5,000. And unfortunately, he disappeared. Him and his wife had the worst possible tragedy a couple could ever experience. They, I think, just hours or maybe a day or two after their daughter was born, she passed away from some kind of, I believe, heart disease or something like that. It was extremely tragic, and no one's heard from Steven since, unfortunately. But everyone who was on the website, who was on the forums, I mean, everybody was seeing old faces. Everyone just connected, and there were quite a few people who decided to put a private server together, get that up and running, and so everyone can play. And it's sort of, even though I think the Realm Reawakened is officially dead, a dead project, it still sparked something. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but people came together, and we kind of created our own little community, and we were not under the thumb of the absentee parents of the people who own the game anymore. It's just great. So even though we're not going to most likely get the Realm Reawakened, we still have this, and these guys are adding a lot of new stuff to the game. It's just very refreshing, very cool. I dig it a lot. So if anyone who did make this game is watching this, especially you, Sir Raptor, thank you very much. Deeply appreciate it. And everybody who does play this game, I love you too. You guys are great. Oh man, I could sit here and just continue to ramble on for hours about the Realm. God, what are some other really good stories? How I got into the Realm, my buddy Dave, he introduced me to this back when I think we were in 7th or 8th grade. I'm 36 years old now. So it was about 7th or 8th grade. And I didn't really understand the concept, but I'll just never forget the days I would come over to his house and watch him play this game on the big screen TV. It's kind of like live streaming. It really was. It was just so cool. Remember, we'd go get McDonald's, and I'd sit there and watch him play, watch him PvP. I'm like, say this! Now say this! It was so much fun. So much fun. And this game really is, it's very laid back. For all of its flaws, I think I've focused way too much on its flaws in the past. But I will just say, I don't care about the flaws. I will play this game for as long as it's around. Whether, if private servers were to get shut down, I would still eventually go back to the original server every once in a while. check it out. But when Dave got me hooked in this game, unfortunately, he didn't do a whole lot of PvP, and he didn't level a whole lot, so I really didn't get to play with him too much. But when we did, it was still a lot of fun. And met some cool people on here. I met a guy through Dave whose name was NT in game, and his real name was Tony. Now, unfortunately, Tony ended up becoming one of the biggest sellouts in my personal life. Just a real selfish person, but for a long time, me and Tony and Dave were all like a little trio of best friends, and it was really great. When I was 16, I remember going, I was talking to Tony. He's like, "You should come to Canada." I'm like, "Dude, that'd be so awesome. I'd love to go down to the Hockey Hall of Fame, check that out, all this other shit." And he really ended up talking me into coming to visit him in Canada. Now, you have to understand, this was like mid to late 90s, and doing that, you know, no one, I mean, you don't know who's on the other end of that computer, you know. It was all just this huge mystery, and you know, it's like they'll always warn you, don't go do it, and it was crazy, right? And so anyway, I was talking to Tony, and god damn, that's loud. Give me a second. So anyway, I was talking to Tony after when it was about, I think, a month or two after the Realm 3.0 came out. I finally got my first computer, and a day after I got my first computer, I got my own phone line installed in my room, so I wasn't tying up the phone line downstairs. And I cannot tell you the euphoric feeling I had when I logged in for the first time. And you know, Tony and Dave helped me level up a little bit. We did this trick called the devil trick. You saw earlier I fought those 5 devils. Excuse me. You saw earlier I fought those 5 devils. Well, back in the day, the devil trick, if I remember correctly, was my buddy Dave and my buddy Tony would join up in my group. I would drink a potion of invisibility, and I would just hit the guard button, and Dave and Tony, they would summon up in the necromancy. I don't have any necromancy right now. I'm too low level. But in the necromancy spell book, there's summon demon. And then the summon demon, you could give him like poisonous touch and all this other stuff. Anyway, they'd get these devils down to like no health, summon some demons, and then they would flee the fight. And the demons would end up finishing off the devils, and the devils wouldn't flee because my character was still in there and still invisible. And what we did was we got my character down to negative experience. We used the amulet of choking, got my character into negative experience, because when you look, where is it? State, right here. You can see how much experience you've accumulated, how many kills you have. Over here is how many PvP kills you have. And so I got down to negative experience, and then whenever you killed those 5 devils and you had negative experience for whatever reason, you'd shoot up to like level 200. And I've heard that there were some people who ended up getting absurd amounts of levels, like to the equivalent of level 1200 using the devil trick. But anyway, so they leveled me up, and it was just the coolest feeling in the world. And I'm very glad I got to experience, you know, the beginning of the internet and online gaming. Very glad I was there to at the beginning of all that. But so me and Tony became pretty good friends. Like, and me and Dave and Tony had all talked like, yeah, we should all, you know, come up to Canada and just hang out, the 3 of us. But unfortunately for Dave, his parents Oh my God, were they strict parents? I mean, cool people, don't get me wrong, but they were very strict. And long story short, there was just no way Dave was going to be able to go meet some stranger in a different country that he met on the internet. I mean, come on. That has just danger written all over it. But my parents, a little bit different. So when Tony and I finally decided, yeah, I'm going to come up to Canada and hang out, I was 16. I had enough. We looked into it. I had enough to buy a plane ticket, or a couple of plane tickets there and back, right? And I had enough to do a little bit of sightseeing. So I go downstairs and I go up to my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad," I was like, not next weekend, but the weekend after next, I'm going to go to Canada and see Tony. And he's laying on the couch watching TV. He just kind of goes, stares at me for a moment, trying to process this. Because with my dad, the best time to catch him was when he was kind of half asleep. Because it's more like a, hey, leave me alone type of thing. And he looks up and he goes, "Do you have money?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Is your passport still good?" I'm like, "Yeah, my passport's good for another, like, 2 years or something like that." And he goes, "Okay." And then as soon as I got the word "okay" out of him, I knew, just walk away quick. Walk away quick. So I started walking away. He goes, We'll talk about it later in the details, Steven. I was like, all right, cool. So I went upstairs and told Tony, I was like, "Dude, we're set. We're good." And I think it was about a week before my dad, it was one of the few times my dad ever really seemed to show any degree of interest, and pulls me in his office, and he's like, tries to have a serious talk with me. And he goes, "Well, I mean, you got money, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Now, I mean, how do you know this guy is who he is?" And like that, I talked to him on the phone, and I've, played this game with him and talked to him every single day for over a year. I've talked to his mom, I've talked to his dad, yada yada. And he goes, "Steven, how do you know this guy isn't really a woman, and then she ties you in her basement and rapes you?" I was like, I failed to see the issue there. And he just sort of laughed. But he expressed his concerns, but I still managed to talk him into it, and I ended up going. I had a blast. We went to Mississauga, Ontario, and I went there when I was 16. We went to the Hockey Hall of Fame. Went all through Toronto. It was fantastic. Then I did not want to leave. Did not want to leave. And I ended up going back again when I was 19 years old, and it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Gotta admit, even though Tony ended up being the biggest sellout piece of shit on the planet a few years later, but what do you do? Lots of memories, lots of cool stories. Yeah. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this here. I think I've rambled on long enough, and I've gone about as far as I can at my current level in here. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and if you have a VR headset, I do suggest picking up one of two different programs, either Virtual Desktop or Big Screen Beta. Both are pretty cool. I find that Virtual Desktop is a little bit better in my opinion, but both have their pros and cons. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys later. See you.